and today we are discussing the final book in Cassandra Clare's The Last Hours trilogy, Chain of Thorns. This is the third book in the Last Hours trilogy, following the children of the characters in the Infernal Devices trilogy, which is Clockwork Angel, Clockwork Prince, and Clockwork Princess. So if you have not read those, you cannot read the Last Hours trilogy. If you have read those, go wild. Read them, devour them, enjoy the crap out of yourself. Just like every other Cassandra Clare novel, I loved reading Chain of Thorns. I am in love with so many of these characters. I'm shipping them all so hard. What can I tell you in this non-spoilery section in terms of how it rates amongst Cassie's other trilogies slash series? This trilogy doesn't beat the Infernal Devices or the Mortal Instruments for me, and I can't tell where I land on TDA, because I think TDA is going to be like a Mortal Instruments, where it has the second 3 books that very much align with what's going on in TDA. I think Cassie's best book is Lord of Shadows, which is the second book in the Dark Artifices, and I think the best trilogy is the Infernal Devices, and I think the best first book in the trilogy is Lady Midnight, but my favorite Cassandra Clare book is Clockwork Prince, and my favorite Cassandra Clare finale is Clockwork Princess, and so many of my favorite characters are in TMI. I'm just very confused about where this lands. I love Chain of Gold so much, but as far as finales go, I feel like Chain of Thorns wasn't as finale-y. It was like the least finale. While in a movie, I'm like, stop having epilogues. In Cassie's books, I'm like, give me them all. Give me every epilogue. Wrap everything up. And I didn't feel wrapped up at the end of Chain of Thorns like I felt wrapped up at the end of City of Heavenly Fire. But I can understand by the end of Chain of Thorns, a 789 page book, she was like, okay, we don't need more of an epilogue. But I just still wanted more of an epilogue. Really, I was not done with these characters, and I feel like she kind of left it open. And while my heart yearns for a complete family tree, I can understand why she's not doing that. Why she didn't give us one. But the first thing I did when I got this was rip it off and be like, family tree? Family tree? Oh. So did we land on a ranking of the series? No. I'm gonna have to sit on it. I really don't think Cassie's done with these characters. It's really hard to talk about this without spoilers, so I think that's it for the non-spoilery section. Did you get enough? My name's Christine, for all you who are just here for non-spoileries. You can go read the book, come back, and discuss it in depth with me here. Alright? Bye, non-spoilery folks! We ended the book with Lucy committing necromancy to bring Jesse back to life. When I say we ended the book, we ended Chain of Iron in that way. She had run off with Malcolm and Jesse, and Will and Magnus ran to get James, and they go to find Lucy. Boy, did I love this portion of time with Will and James and Magnus in the carriage. Quality time with Will Herondale. Like, I'm glad we didn't portal there. We wouldn't have these beautiful moments. So they don't know where they're going. They're just looking around the Cornwall coast. Because little did I know until I went to the UK last October, Cornwall wasn't a city. See, when I read about the Cornwall Institute back in Clockwork Princess times or Clockwork Angel times, I was like, oh, Cornwall, it's a city. And then I'm planning my trip to the UK with Natasha, and we're like, oh yeah, we gotta go to Cornwall. Go to the Cornwall Institute, lol lol. We realized that Cornwall is like a whole section of the UK. It's not one city, it's like the whole bottom. So they don't know where exactly Lucy and Malcolm and Jesse might be in Cornwall. Magnus goes, we ought to be able to get to Polperro in a few hours anyway. Since they have a while yet, Will goes, I shall amuse you with the tale then. Your mother James was missing. If you ever loved me, Belial, I cried, let your feet now be swift and carry me to my dear Tessa. It was a stormy night. The storm that raged inside my breast was fiercer still. I can't believe you haven't heard this story before, James. Yeah, I haven't. Not since last Thursday. James and Magnus are sharing one side of the carriage, as it had become quickly apparent on the first day of their journey that will need the entire side for dramatic gesturing. I love all all the subtle bantering between Will and Magnus and Will, Magnus, and Tessa. Like, we just see them all together, and they're just like such nice friends. I love their friendship. I want an adult series from the point of view of Will and Tessa about this book. There's a point at the end of Act 2 when Will and Tessa have to go to Idris to be tried about having been in cahoots for years with Belial, because they didn't tell everyone the second they found out that Belial was Tessa's parent. Of course they didn't fucking tell anyone, because everyone would overreact just like they are right now. And it's quite apparent something very serious is stirring with Belial. But somehow all that is kind of pushed aside so that Tessa and Will can be immediately tried in Idris with the mortals. Couldn't we bring the mortal sword here? Couldn't we do that locally? All the adults disappear. I was just like, are you guys serious? Didn't this just happen? Every time all the adults disappear, it's time for the crux of the story we're reading to happen. I wanted to see Will fighting alongside Cordelia or James or any. I just want to see Will and Tessa, because we know that I think Thomas spotted them in the last wave of Shadowhunters to come in. I want to see them. We've never seen Tessa fight, have we? I don't know how Will and Tessa couldn't sense that the second that they left, something terrible was gonna happen. Now it's like we read enough Shadowhunter books to know that when the parents leave, everything goes to fucking shit and hell literally breaks loose. Now when it happens, I'm just like, come on, guys. Tell them to bring the mortal sword to you. Go one at a time. One at a time. All right, let's wind back to the beginning. Matthew and Cordelia are in Paris. When they left in Chain of Iron, I was like, it's not gonna go well. Matthew's gonna be miserable. Like, he's not gonna be able to stop drinking. And immediately we go there, and Matthew's like, Cordelia's like, Matthew hasn't had a drink since we got here. La 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 la, he's buying me all these dresses. It's wonderful. Cordelia, sweetheart. He's lying. I was just waiting patiently for the other shoe to drop. But of course, it didn't drop until they had a makeout session out in public and then went back to the hotel room and they were passionately making out in her room and the lights were off and then the light turned on and James was just sitting there in the corner. Let's talk about James and Cordelia. The bracelet broke in the last book and it was the most frustrating end to a Cassandra Clare book of all time for me because nobody communicated anything. This whole James and Cordelia not communicating thing went on for so long. Every time they didn't tell each other things, I had to like get on my phone and text Rage Natasha like, they met each other again and they didn't say anything. James not telling her about the bracelet over and over again? Oh my god. When they were in Paris and he didn't say anything, I was losing my mind. Don't give me this bullshit about her staying with you out of pity. That is the stupidest thing I have ever heard. Please. I couldn't. This is the... And he was like, it sounds like a lie. She's not even gonna believe me. In what world would she not believe you if you explained that Grace was using an enchantment with Tatiana from Belial? We've been fighting them. They've been our antagonists the entire time. Why would she doubt you? Matthew's grandparents on his father's side had left a great deal of money to Henry, and I guess Henry has been allowing Matthew to use that money to live on his own. He buys Cordelia all these pretty dresses in Paris, and then she has them to wear for the rest of the book. And James destroys one when they finally talk to each other. They didn't even talk to each other. Grace had to tell Cordelia. When Grace was like, Christopher, can you get someone that I need to apologize to? It was like, thank the fucking angel. Oh my god. These people need help. They are so bad at communication. They need someone that they hated to pull them back together. She has to be like, Cordelia, James, it was all my fault, now kiss. That's literally what happened. I'm saying that they talked, but like they only talked after Grace intervened. That would have gone on forever. I think this series can't be my favorite Shadowhunter series just because of how frustrated I am by so many things that happen in it. Another thing that happens, Cordelia doesn't want to have Cortana on her because she doesn't want to summon Lilith. She leaves Cortana with Alistair. I don't know about you, but this whole time I'm like, we're gonna need Cortana to beat this book. I feel this is counterproductive. And then once everything starts to go to shit and Tatiana has come and attacked the Institute, she still doesn't go to get Cortana till she's going to go to Edom. Cordelia, we all know you need Cortana. go get it. Get Cortana, or just pull out your hand and be like, Cortana, come. So there's this scene where she chases after Tatiana after she comes to attack the Institute. And Grace runs after her with this little knife, and Grace is not trained and she's barefoot. Cordelia sees her go and runs after her with her because there's no way that Grace can take on Tatiana alone. Cordelia doesn't have a weapon on her, but she corners Tatiana and she's like, it's time. And I thought she meant it's time to pull out Cortana, all right? And I thought she was gonna do it. I thought she was gonna be like, Cortana, come to me. And it was gonna be like, to her hand like Thor. And Lilith instead makes her this like ice sword and gives it to her and makes her cut Tatiana's throat with it. So really, it's almost like, what's the point of not having Cortana? There is no point. There was no point. Belial wants Cortana so that Cordelia can't use it to kill him. And so what's the best way to prevent Belial from getting it? Cordelia to have it so that she can kill him. During that battle with all the Silent Brothers that are possessed by like worm demons, chimera demons, I'm just like, Lucy can command the dead. Lucy's gonna save the day because they can't kill them. They keep slashing at them and they heal and they pop back up, and there's only like 6 shadow hunters and 1 million Silent Brother walkers. Is that what they called them? Walkers? Watchers. Watchers! I'm just sitting there waiting for like, Lucy, use your power. Use your power. Pull the ghosts of those dead people and make the demons get out of them. I was like screaming that from the very first second. And when she finally did something, it was to bring back Tatiana's husband, Rupert, so that he could like talk to Tatiana and be like, I'm ashamed of you. And I know he wanted her to feel bad and to know that her avenging Rupert wasn't going to make Rupert happy, and she needed to confront that idea to back down in some sort of way. But this could have been stopped way earlier if we forced those chimeras out of the walkers sooner. I was not prepared for Christopher to die in this. I was in hysterics and I pulled out my phone and I was like, should I vlog this? Christopher just died. I love Kit. It's weird to call him Kit because I'm realizing right now that there is a Kit further down the line. I love him, and last book I just wanted more of him because he's the sweetest and he's so wonderfully weird. In this book we get more of him and he's inventing fire messages. The first scene we see him, he's like fiddling around with fire and paper, and I was like, oh my fucking god, Christopher's over here inventing the fire message right now. Can you believe this? That becomes like a main plot line. I was so annoyed when I was reading the Grace chapter because I was like, damn it. Damn it, Grace! Why do I feel bad for you? You can't help but feel bad for her. And it's really, really nice of Christopher to visit her and give her something to keep her mind off of the fact that she's trapped in this cell. He brings his fire message note to her to look at because he can't quite get it right. I was living for Thomas in this book. Thomas is helping Christopher with fire messages, and Christopher's just having him write notes, like anything on a note, because they need to test it for a fire message. He writes this note to Alistair. Dear Alistair, why are you so stupid and so frustrating? Why do I think about you all the time? Why do I have to think about you when I get up and when I go to sleep and when I brush my teeth? And right now, why did you kiss me in the sanctuary if you don't want to be with me? Is it that you don't want to tell anyone? It's very annoying, Thomas. I am so sure that this is going to be the message that finally goes through. Alistair is going to see it. He's like, oh wow, he really likes me. And then a couple chapters later, we get a summoning from Alistair. He needs to see Thomas immediately. I asked you here because I wanted to know why you sent me a note calling me stupid. Thomas is like, oh my god, wait, did he get the note? Alistair gives him the note and it says, Dear Alistair, why are you so stupid? I brushed my teeth. Don't tell anyone. I was like in hysterics for a good 60 seconds. I don't know why you don't want anyone to know you brush your teeth, but I will of course keep this news in the strictest confidence. I think that might be my favorite comedic moment of the whole book. What perfection. Their ship was my favorite. And I was just in happy tears so often for Alistair and Thomas. They're adorable. Ooh, I had a favorite sentence in this book. I highlighted it. I was like, damn, what a sentence. This is when I think Lucy, when she's going in and out of her darkness after she brings Jesse back from the dead, which technically wasn't necromancy because Jesse wasn't completely dead. We got out of there on a technicality. All right, folks, calm down, Christine. His last breath was given away, but I guess his body was preserved, so it's different. Favorite sentence. Her fingertip grip on alertness had slipped, tumbling her into the darkness of her own mind, where time swayed and lurched like a ship in a storm, and she could hardly tell whether she was awake or asleep. Damn! What a beautiful visual. Ugh. We learn that you can't track someone over water, which maybe we learned before, but I did not remember, so I was like, oh, let's highlight this. Fun fact! We can touch on Malcolm Fade here. He immediately gets all weird and obsessive about bringing Annabelle back from the dead. Lucy's recovering on this bed for days, and he is already itching to ask her to bring back Annabelle. And when she says that she doesn't think she can do it right now, he says, I will wait for as long as it takes. He's been in Fairy, apparently. And I feel like during the scene where they're deciding what to do about Jesse, he's just casually flipping through the black book. Is that what's happening? Because that's what I feel like is what's happening. And then maybe he took that to Fairy. He's just wearing a straw hat and sitting on a bench looking out at Lucy at the end of the book, because Lucy promised to let him talk to Annabelle's ghost and find out what happened to her. He's mad at Lucy for not fulfilling her promise to let him talk to Annabelle, even though Lucy's lost her power. So when Belial dies, James and Lucy lose their special abilities because they were from their grandpa Belial. Which begs the question, does Tessa lose her abilities? I'm very unclear on Tessa's change ability because I can't be 1,000% sure because I didn't do a book talk about the Ghost of the Shadowhunter Market, but I believe there's a short story in there. I can't remember. There was something in there where I was like, why can't she change? Or what's up with her change? She hadn't changed in years. Did she lose her power too? Because you would think that they'd all lose their power simultaneously, you know? Or can she still do it? Malcolm seems to think that maybe it'll come back with time, like a wound. And I feel like that should be true because I would think that these powers are part of their DNA, not like something that he like deemed them with. He wasn't like, I baptize you with this power. It just happened because they're descendant from him. We learn a little bit more about the Blackthornes because Malcolm has been researching their family tree, and Annabelle had a brother, Ezekiel, who moved to America because he was upset with his parents and how horrible they were. So he moved to America. Their plan is to say that he had kids and had a family, and that Jesse's name is Jeremy, and he is a descendant of Ezekiel. He's his grandson. Let's go back to Paris. We need to go back to Paris. Matthew and Cordelia in Paris. Was anyone else just constantly singing in their head? We were in Paris, in an alleyway, drinking champagne. Cause I was. Cordelia, before they kiss, she's like, she puts her hands flat against his chest, takes a deep breath. Matthew, hold me. The words hold me just get me every time. I'm just like, lo, hold me. It feels like one of those movies from the 40s where the women, when they get kissed, they're always like, they all go like limp like a bag of bones. And the man dunks them and they're like, oh. And that's what I'm picturing. We're just like, hold me. And he like holds her and she's like, Don't get me wrong, I'm all for a good kissing scene. But I wasn't for Matthew kissing Cordelia. Because first of all, we all knew Matthew was lying. And we all knew that James was like planning to come to Paris. And he told Lucy, she's like, you better get over there because Paris is a very romantic city. And then we switched to Paris and there they are like making out against a fucking lamppost. There's a beautiful picture of Matthew and Cordelia in Paris on a bridge. Are they on a bridge? They're along the Seine. They're somewhere outside the club. And it was a great kiss scene. It was. But at the same time, I was like, please stop. Stop it. Stop it. And then they just kept going. It just continued the frustration of her and James not communicating because they're too proud. Proud is just another word for scared to communicate. Someone was sitting beneath the lamp. Someone in a black traveling suit. Pale face, a smudge of white. Cassie uses the word a smudge of white, I feel like a bunch of times in this novel to describe James's face in the shadows. Our key word that we saw pop up a bunch of times in A Chain of Thorns was spangled. Star Spangled in particular. The first time I was like, oh, what a beautiful use of spangled. And Cassie must have been like, yeah, I like that. I like that. And that became like the key phrase of Chain of Thorns. He looked up at the sky, deep black, spangled with stars. So James is just like chilling in Cordelia's room in the dark like a creep. He turns on the light as they're making out on Cordelia's bed. And he's like, I didn't think I would be walking in on y'all about to have sex on the bed. James turns on the light. I slapped the book and screamed out, no! And then after that, I'm so relieved, right? Because I'm like, finally, this is it. We're gonna do it. They're gonna talk. We're gonna get this sorted. James and Cordelia are finally gonna work things out. But does he tell her? Does he tell her? James didn't tell her. I'm a cutter, bitch, is what I wrote. I stopped taking notes after this. I was so mad. See, my anger over their miscommunication, because I guess that's become my biggest pet peeve in YA novels, is miscommunication, dragging on and on. It takes up so much of my brain space worrying about this. Every time I read, I was like, they talked again, and they didn't say anything! But when they finally did talk, we got, I think, the sexiest sex scene we've ever gotten in a Shadowhunter novel. Do you agree? I think we had quite a few sexy scenes with Emma and Julian, but were they as sexy as this scene? Did they fall on the steps? And then Cordelia was like, James, don't get off of me. He picked her up and he couldn't get the door to their room open, so he shot it open with his gun. The bathtub scene really made it. Like, Cassie really gave us a nice big chunk of James and Cordelia time to make up for all the torture with the bracelet. But there was a lot of time in between that Paris scene and making out on the steps and shooting the door open to their bedroom. I want to talk about Matthew. I am so proud of him. There were some really beautiful Matthew scenes in this book. One of my favorites is when Cordelia sends out the bat signal for the Merry Thieves and they all show up to support him, and Christopher's like, hey, you can't just quit safely. You have to be weaning yourself off. I'm gonna make you this drink to have. And then they all stay the night with him. It's so cute. And then Alistair shows up the next morning. Thomas goes outside to walk Oscar, and Alistair's just like in the shadows. I love that Alistair and Matthew have healed their relationship. And I love that Alistair comes in and he just starts pouring out the alcohol. Without warning, he strode to the open window and began emptying the bottle out of it. Free liquor for the mundanes, he added. You'll be popular. Yes, actually, I hear the mundanes prefer their drinks poured on their heads from 4 stories up. What else do I love? All the names of Lucy's books. They're all so long and on the nose. It's fantastic. Lucy gave him a look that reminded him of certain scenes from Lucy's first novel, Secret Princess Lucy is rescued from her terrible family. We get more background about Malcolm's childhood. So we know that the Blackthorns raised Malcolm, but Malcolm clarifies that he wouldn't call it raised. To them, I was their property, and for the privilege of being fed and clothed and housed by them, I was obliged to perform magic at their command. Annabelle's parents' names were Felix and Adelaide Blackthorne. Maybe I should start my own family tree, actually. We're not gonna get a Blackthorne family tree. I'm gonna Esme Hightower this shit. So we know Annabelle is dead.
A few moments later.
So I didn't get very far with my family tree, because turns out it's a mystery which one of these produced Rupert. And then over here we've got Tatiana and Rupert. And then Jessie and Lucy, and then nothing. Because we have no idea which one of these ended up producing our Blackthorne line. And we don't even have confirmation that Jessie and Lucy even got married. Another one of my big gripes with Chain of Thorns is that at the end, there was no wedding. I've gotten used to ending every Shadowhunter trilogy with a beautiful wedding or a beautiful funeral, and we had no wedding or funeral at the end of this. Where was my Jessie and Lucy wedding? We were primed, because then maybe they could have gotten pregnant and had their firstborn, and then maybe I could have added something to my beautiful family tree in progress. Eventually, I'll be able to add, I don't even fucking remember Julian's dad. Who birthed all those kids? I Googled while we were waiting those 5 minutes, and apparently we don't even know their mom's name. Is that true? Or is the random PDF family tree another fan made not correct? We don't know the fairy's name that Helen and Mark came from. We don't know anything about the Blackthorns. So I really want Jessie and Lucy's wedding. I want their family tree. If nothing else, I want to know where their line went. I need this. Will we get it at the end of The Wicked Powers? Cassie, can you put a family tree for the Blackthornes on the inside jacket of The Wicked Powers? Like the last book in The Wicked Powers. What about that? Magnus continues to fulfill his role as perpetual interrupter of key relationship moments. I think Magnus, like when he's about to tell anyone news, he like listens at the door for the least opportune moment to kick it in. I think it's like an ongoing inside joke with himself. Like, okay, who can I interrupt next? Alistair and Thomas are about to kiss in the Institute yard, and then the portal opens and Magnus rides through with the carriage. Look at that! We can ride a carriage through a portal. So this whole James and Cordelia thing, while they're too proud to talk to each other, Cordelia brings up that when they moved into the house on Curzon Street, he was always planning to move into that house with Grace. But like in Chain of Iron, she specifically notes all the little details that are especially curated for her, not Grace. And then in this one, she's pointing out that the house was never for her. I'm like, how are you not putting two and two together? The house was specifically for you, and you know this, Cordelia. We spend a lot of this book trying to figure out how to cut Cordelia's paladin bond with Lilith. People come up with some good ideas, and I'm like, why aren't we putting this into action? I think it's Christopher or Thomas who says Lilith wants her to do evil things, so why doesn't she go out of her way to do especially nice things and see if that does anything to the bond? I'm like, that's worth a shot. But the one that sounded the most viable, Alistair says, what if we tried to find or summon the real Wayland the Smith? I want this so bad. I just want to meet Wayland the Smith. I want to know what he is. I want to know more about him. I really thought we were going to get that in this series, and this feels like a very loose end that we haven't tied up. He must be one of the most powerful beings alive if he's still alive. Surely he'd be vexed to learn that a demon had impersonated him. And then James is like, good thought. They kind of just changed the subject. This is a good idea. Can we stay on this for a moment? Why didn't we tell this to anyone else? Why didn't we summon Wayland the Smith? This is what I was saying, like, after Chain of Iron, I had this whole thing where I was like, can she just bend the knee to someone else? And will that break her paladin bond to Lilith? If she pledges herself to another being, doesn't it break that bond because she's pledging it to someone else? What if she swears fealty to the real Wayland the Smith? I don't why didn't we do this? We could have given this a go. My note here is, OMFG, are we gonna find Wayland the Smith? We didn't. So when we're in Paris, when Matthew and Cordelia are out at this club, there's this performer, Madame Dorothea, who has eyeballs on her hands. Cordelia's father speaks through her and says they wake. And then my brain was like, was Madame Dorothea the lady living under Clary's mom in New York City in that Brooklyn apartment? After Cordelia summoned that demon and James met her at Curzon Street and was like, do you have any idea what would have happened if I would have lost you? Like, I can't lose you. Like, I love you. And they start making out, and then someone's at the door. God fucking damn it! I swear to God! Delete the doorbell. Rip it off! And of course, we couldn't just ignore it. And of course, it was just Jesse. And he was just like, look at my new clothes. Is this a bad time? Is it? There's the Christmas party. And at the Christmas party, there's a Christmas tree made out of weapons. Is it really a good idea to have a tree made of weapons in a room full of drunk shadow hunters? Is it? As soon as I saw that tree, I was like, well, there's gonna be a battle. People are gonna need those weapons. I was so excited for this party. I was convinced that this was gonna be the moment that James and Cordelia finally talked and worked things out. And yes, they talked a little bit. But of course, Matthew was in the picture and she had to let Matthew down. Matthew at the end, who was sober and about to travel the world, just made me so proud. I want an adult novel about Matthew's adventures. I want to know Matthew's family tree. I want the Fairchild family tree. Tatiana shows up at the party because she can. They were blatantly warned that Tatiana might show up. They thought at the time that Tatiana was up at the Cornwall Institute, but it was just an Eidolon demon that looked like her. Still, Jesse warned that she would want to come to this party. Why wouldn't we at least have security? And what happens? She's stolen Alexander Lightwood, the baby, and I immediately started crying and panicking because I think I've seen this film before and I didn't like the ending. Thank God it caught Tatiana when they did. She was about to mark him at 3 years old when he couldn't survive getting a Shadowhunter's mark. And I think I've seen that film before and I didn't like the fucking ending. So Cordelia like looks through the window of the Lightwood house. She's just in there drawing on him and Cordelia punches out the window to save Alexander. And then Tatiana just like runs to the next room. Oh, I guess you got me. And Cordelia somehow is the only one that's suspicious. And James is like, you're right, that is suspicious. Doesn't tell anyone. The lack of communication is astounding. And then she's in Silent City. Grace tells Jem, is it even Jem or is it someone else? One of the other Silent Brothers, maybe it's Enoch or something. But she's concerned about her mother being down there because she says that her mother's gonna find a way to get her. And the Silent Brothers are like, don't worry, don't worry, don't worry. And she's like, no, I'm worried. No one listens. Over and over. How many times does Tatiana have to break out of somewhere for you to believe that she can get anywhere at any time? She literally, like, you sent her to the Adamant Citadel and you were like, oh, it's gonna be fine. How would she escape? There's just nothing around for her to go to. But she did! Alexander being held at blade point was just horrifying. Because we knew something was going to happen to someone in this book. But I wasn't thinking it was going to be Kit. You know why? I think we all know why. Let's consult the tree. And this is the first time we hear about the tree, too, at the Christmas party. And I'm like, ha ha ha. But at the same time, because I have studied this tree forever. It says Christopher Lightwood and Grace Cartwright, and then it goes down all the way to Robert. It doesn't make sense that Esme would have ever written this because there's no way that she would know everybody's names. She wouldn't know that Christopher and Grace ever had a thing. How would she have known? Sorry, I don't need to poke holes in this way that we're trying to write away this tree, but I love this tree. I want this tree to be real. Christopher and Grace were supposedly creating the most important Lightwoods in our life. I feel like the most touching scenes in the book were when Christopher was around. I really, really loved the scene when Grace was down in the laboratory and she was trying to make the fire messages work and she was alone and she was talking to Christopher and he showed up and he was behind her and he was like, don't look, because it's taking all my energy to just voice my voice. He said that he believed in her and he knew that she could do it by herself. And that's a running theme in this book, that all you really need is someone to believe in you for you to be able to do things that you might think are unachievable on your own. And that person can be you. And sometimes you just need someone to tell you they believe in you for you to believe in you. It's a really, really sweet scene and I was just bawling again when that was happening. So the Christmas party. Matthew at this party, he says without the alcohol, it's like I'm watching clockwork dolls in a child's dollhouse acting out their parts. Nothing seems real, or perhaps I am the one who's not real. Hashtag clockwork reference. Tatiana's Dress made a comeback in this book. I don't know if you saw, but I made a reel/TikTok about 10 things that I needed to see happen in Chain of Thorns. One of those things was Tatiana's Dress catching fire. And it did catch fire! As much as I didn't want Cordelia to have to kill someone, I'm glad Tatiana is dead. Like, she had to die. I feel like maybe we could have seen her working through it a little bit more. Maybe talk about, I wanted her to like voice it. I think James says like, I know how hard it could be. And she's just like, yeah. They need to open up.
I want to see Tatiana's Dress burn. I want to see Jesse and Lucy live happily ever after.
That might have happened.
That's why it's on the list. 4, I want Lucy to get published. Yes.
Where is her published book?
5, Blackthorne family tree closure. 6, we gotta find out what's in Cordelia's globe necklace.
We
James
got that.
Something in there and it has to be a proclamation of
All right,
love.
wait a minute. It was a proclamation of his love. Score! At the same time, it was like a piece of paper with a quote on it. I was like, James, that's it? It's a quote that means I love you, but still. When you were like, oh, she'll never know the real thing that's in it. I thought it was like a diamond ring. I thought it was like a gold ticket to Constantinople. Like I said, they are going to Constantinople. Lucy didn't sell her book. I just want another chapter where like Lucy has sold her book and then Jesse proposes. And then maybe another one where they get married. I'm still waiting for that Clace wedding. Someday. Maybe Christopher Lightwood is code for maybe Christopher and Grace is actually code for Thomas and Alistair. And maybe they adopted Isidore Lightwood because there's only one kid. So this is how I'm interpreting this. So Christopher and Grace is actually code for Thomas and Alistair. And so they adopted a kid, Isidore Lightwood. And then Isidore Lightwood created the rest of the Lightwood line. I stand the family tree. I'm sorry, Cassie.
I want to see Matthew find a non-Cordelia love interest.
Matthew didn't get another love interest, but to be fair, he needed to work on himself, which is why we need a Matthew series as an adult as he travels the world. I would love that! We need just like a romance series. Can we just like have a contemporary novel following Matthew through his travels and finding love? We could just call it Prince Matthew, the kind finds love. The Fairchild family tree story. I got Cassie. Do you like it? Prince Matthew, the kind finds love. The Fairchild family tree story. I feel like this is great. What a great novel. He can be on his own version of The Bachelor. Like, the Matthew is The Bachelor. Like, meets a friend that sets up a dating show for... I don't know if this is gonna work. Let's just go with my first idea. Prince Matthew, the kind, finds love around the world. The Fairchild family tree story. Yes, we've got it. We get a reference to a pillar of salt, which I know is like Bible references and stuff, but also City of Dead Babies, City of Fallen Angels. People attack the person with the mark of Cain. They explode into pillars of salt. They begin to march down the steps passing Tatiana as if she was a lifeless pillar of salt. References! There's lots of Easter eggs in here. There's the clockwork Easter egg that I pointed out. And then there's a Wicked Powers Easter egg. This is such a chaotic book talk. I'm gonna hate editing this. I'm sorry. So Cordelia cuts Tatiana's throat at the request of her master Lilith. And Lilith is casually like, it's too bad you refused to use Cortana. You could have saved her life. A paladin's bonded weapon has the power to heal what it has harmed. I think we all collectively were like, what? This is very important information. I don't know why Lilith told us that. It kind of feels like, why would she want us to know that? Because anything that she makes Cordelia do, Cordelia could undo, right? Which was very confusing because, again, Cordelia doesn't immediately go get Cortana. Cordelia's like, what? And Lilith's like, yeah, you heard me. If I learned this, the first thing I would do would be go get Cortana and test it out so I can know and then tell all my friends so that James knows. I know that James knew that at the end, obviously, because she cuts her hand and then shows Belial that she can heal it right in front of him. And so James knows that maybe she could heal him. But we could have known this ages ago if we just communicated anything. She goes back and Christopher has died and we're all mourning. You know what I would have done? I would have gotten Cortana and tried to heal Christopher immediately. I don't care that I didn't make the wound. If I have a magic sword, who knows? Why not give it a go? James agrees to go to Edom, and I love the moment where he's going and Cordelia's seeing the smudge of white and Matthew moving more quickly than she would have thought possible, shot up through a gap in the darkness and flung himself at James, catching hold of his sleeve just as the darkness closed in on them both. This moment warmed my heart. Oh, one of my favorite scenes was the night in Edom where Matthew is like in between James's legs, like up against his chest, and Matthew is shivering from the withdrawals, and Matthew starts to seize. Irates don't work in Edom, but James infuses the irates with his powers from Belial, and they work for like half a second, and he just keeps drawing them over and over again. And Matthew's like, mate, you can't do that all night. And James is like, watch me. Watch me! James made a Cain reference when he was talking to Matthew after Matthew finally told him what happened with Charlotte back in the day when Charlotte lost the baby. Oh, Charlotte's pregnant with twins! Who knows who those twins are gonna grow up to be? Oh my god, are we gonna have the story of the twins? What was I saying? So he makes this Cain reference. Your bad decisions did have terrible, unforeseeable consequences, but you are not the devil incarnate or Cain condemned to wander. Again, the pillars of salt. Cain. Simon. Huh, wait a minute. This is interesting now because Cain is condemned to wander and Matthew is headed to wander the world. I hope we're not foreshadowing anything. We see Esme Hightower at the Christmas party being like, y'all, how many kids do you think you're gonna have to all these couples? And everyone's like, haha, Esme Hightower and her family tree is gonna be so dumb. And then in Edom, Cordelia and Lucy bring it up again. Esme thinks she knows exactly who's gonna marry who and who's going to die when. Some people she thinks are alive are dead, and there are people who are dead who she's convinced is actually alive. This is going to be quite the family tree. It will confuse scholars for decades. Me. Like, we had to go a little further just to be like, this is not real. That's what this is saying. Christine, this is not real. But here I am. Let's consult the tree. I can't let it go. I need a new one. Can we get a new one? A real one? A real one? A real one? I would just love to look at it. I'd love to frame it. I would love it for Christmas so I could have it on my wall. I would frame that forever. That's the dream, people. Every time I see Cassie, I forget to ask her to sign my books. I need her to sign this. Next time I see Cassie, we gotta bring this. Why haven't I done that? What have I been thinking all these years? Another major highlight of the book, when Grace sends the first successful fire message. Alistair is walking to get Grace and Jesse, and a piece of paper poofs to life in front of him. I, again, started crying. It was a very emotional moment. If you're reading this, the first fire message has been sent with success. It has been written by Grace Blackthorne and invented by Christopher Lightfoot. I would like to know what else Grace Blackthorne invents, because surely she now is going to invent shit. It's really nice to have a female scientist in the mix now. Did Henry made the sensor? Henry made the portal. Christopher made fire messages. What will Grace Blackthorne give us that we use in the future? When Lucy and Cordelia reach old Alicante in Edom, Philomena D'Angelo shows up and descends upon them with wings. And I'm just like, you don't even go here! I've been annoyed with this bitch since last book when she blamed Cordelia for her death. Who are you? So all of the people that have been killed under Belial's rule are trapped. Their souls are trapped in Edom. James does indeed end up getting possessed by Belial. I guess we were always going in this direction. Belial just wouldn't shut up. Belial's like my younger sister at age 8 asking for a dog. No matter how much she was turned down, she just kept doing it until she wore you down and you're gonna rip your hair out until you finally told her that you're going to get a dog just so she'd shut up. And that's what we did to Belial. He was throwing a temper tantrum. He took over all of London and was like, I'm just gonna murder people until you say yes. But if James had only held out a little bit longer, so this was also a thing, I was like, oh my god, Cordelia and Lucy are gonna be there in 5 seconds. Please hold off for a minute with your plan to let Belial take over your body. And of course, it doesn't work out like that. Oh, you just missed him. I love how Belial, after he's in James's body, is like, oh, your little friends, your stupid sister and your stupid wife came to stupid Edom to stupid rescue you, but they didn't get to you in time. Haha, now they're just gonna die in Edom with your stupid Parabati. Meanwhile, he just left a portal open to where he just went. I was just so confused. I was like, didn't they just walk by a portal with your exact location? And they were like, this is how Belial has been getting around. This portal that's just here. How would they not find it? Matthew was literally in the next room. I was just so confused. They're gonna roam Edom forever. There'll be dust and ashes. You left the door open, you fucking dumbass. He jumps to London and he's walking along the bridge in James's body. He's like, ho, James, you thought that you were just gonna be unconscious, but I want you here so you can watch me in all my glory be king of London. I don't know why his dreams to be king of London. It's weird, but it just is. It's just what he wants. Some people want to go to college. Some people want a puppy. Belial wants control of London. Why? I don't know. Just to rule over it for shits and giggles. My dad said that I could never roam Earth. I showed him. I'm here. That's him. And he's like, the first thing I'm gonna do is king myself. Oh, look at him. He's trying to be kinged. This is a big chess metaphor, actually. And he turned everyone into pawns. And his pawns were the walkers. Oh. And then the shadow hunters were the bishops. And Cordelia was the queen. James was the pawn. And Cordelia passed it to James. And James sacrificed himself to king himself. Look at this. What a metaphor. London was the chess table, man. And he was going to get kinged. And he couldn't. Bitch, Cordelia took you down. Oh, man. Anyway, Belial as James, walking down the bridge. Revel in my glory. He's got all his watchers. Meanwhile, he knows his granddaughter can control the dead, but he's like, not a worry in the world, because she's a girl. Girls are stupid. And he gets to Westminster Abbey, and he's like, I know what you're thinking. In order to be king, I need an Archbishop of Canterbury. And James is like, that is nowhere near what I was thinking. But okay. And then he raises an old Archbishop of Canterbury to do his kinging ceremony. And it's like the slowest kinging ceremony of all time. It's like he still hasn't put the crown on. Well, there's an entire battle raging on the outside of Westminster Abbey. Like all these shadow hunters are coming. They're battling their way into the church. And he's still like just standing there with the crown not quite on his head. And the skeleton's just like chilling. Like, I'm an old Archbishop of Canterbury. I'm ready if you need me. Say a few words in your weird kinging ceremony alone in the Westminster Abbey. Where's everybody else at? Belial starts bringing all the weird statues in there to life to stop Cordelia from reaching James with Cortana. And he's like, ha ha ha! It doesn't matter if she even gets to me because she'll never be able to kill me when I look like James because women are too emotional. He says that, but he's in complete denial because also he's petrified of Cordelia. Wow. This chess thing, man, just like, whoo-hoo! Like I knew there was a chess metaphor going on, but like it just got way more real. People are asking like, why do you want to be king? And he's like, because then the mortals will respect me. It's like their highest honor and I of course need it. He's kind of acting like one of the gods in Percy Jackson. You know how they're like really socially dumb? They've just been gods for so long they don't understand what it's like to be. It's like when you're a boomer, you're way past your youth, so you like don't understand what's going on with Gen Z. He's trying to fit in with the Zoomers and he's just like he's too far removed. He's like, is this how you do it? Like, am I doing it right? If I put on the crown, are you gonna respect me? I have to ask, so when Belial was being punished by Daddy, you know, his dad, God, came down, or like the angel, the God angel, he's like, Father, no! And he's being raised, right? Did you picture the cover of Hush Hush? Because it's all I saw. All I saw was like, the cover of Hush Hush is happening to Belial. He's being sucked up into the sky with his wings because he's a fallen evil angel. Anybody? Bueller? Bueller? You know, Christine, get out of here with your outdated fucking references. So, where was I? Belial walking down the street. He raises his Canterbury. We didn't even use the Archbishop of Canterbury. We have a picture of James holding the crown above his head. Does he ever put it on? Not to my memory. He must have just been like holding it this whole time. Just waiting for his opportune moment. He was waiting for Cordelia to get there. She wanted her to be there for his big moment of fitting in with the mundanes. What else happened? A little before Cordelia gets in there, her friends, the whole crew, is bringing her in through the back door to get into Westminster Abbey, which I'm like, Belial couldn't send someone to guard the back door. No one did a perimeter check before they locked down Westminster Abbey. It's very emotional. I was emotional. I'm laughing now because I just like really cracked myself up with this whole reenactment in my head. But Cordelia is being surrounded, like in Spy Kids, with all her friends. I was literally just here at Westminster Abbey last October. So like I know exactly like all the things Cassie's describing. I'm like, oh my God, I could have reenacted this scene and pretended to be Belial if I had only known beforehand. They get into Westminster Abbey though, and all these watchers pour in, and then Anna and Ari stay back to hold them off. And I immediately started crying. We have to talk about this one little paragraph that Belial spouts during his coronation. While I kind of dismissed it in the moment, I did highlight it because I saw the Morning Star reference and I was like, oh, I'm gonna want to look at this later. Anytime Morning Star comes up, I'm like, what's happening? What is this reference to Morgenstern? Because Morgenstern means Morning Star. I've done some Googling and Morning Star, I think, is how they're referring to Lucifer. Now, Why a shadow hunter would have the last name referring to Satan, I don't know. It also refers to the weapon of a morning star. He says, "You did not see the first revolt against your power coming, great one." This is James with Belial inside of him. "And you have not stopped this one either." So again, that went during the moment because I was like, Cordelia, Tessa, Will, where are you? But he's talking to God, presumably. He's talking to Great One, the great angel. And you have not stopped this one either. This leads me to believe that there's a bigger thing happening with Belial and his siblings. Because we know, if you read the Elder Trilogy with Magnus and Alec, it feels like the Princes of Hell are organizing for some greater evil. There's like some Princes of Hell Avengers thing being set up, presumably for the wicked powers. So it feels like they tried to start that now, but it didn't work out. Maybe he wanted London for some reason that was aligning with their greater plan we're not privy to. And then this new Belial comes at the end. He's like, "Oh, I'm the replacement Belial. I have got no beef with this family. Could you leave me alone and I'll leave them alone. Pass it on, Jem. Bye." If that new Belial just walked off and was like, "I'm gonna do what old Belial did all over again." Like, what if he had a kid and that kid was Valentine? I love the moment where Cordelia is proving that she can heal with Cortana. Belial's like, "I too have heard the stories that claim such a power, but they're just stories." I know we're all just sliding in here like, "Bitch, haven't you heard? All the stories are true." I mean, I feel like we should talk about Bridget, but also, like, she's, like, weirdly immortal. Bridget is so random. She's, like, the most random character. Bridget just, like, pops out during the battle with all the Chimera, and Thomas is there battling with her, and she gets struck by demon lightning, and then she looks like she's, like, de-aging. She's just gonna be alive forever now. I'm pretty sure she just pops up in Lord of Shadows. She's like, "Hey, I'm Bridget, getting you some food in London. Hi." My favorite little bit of the epilogue was Will sending a million text messages and getting a million fire messages from my dad. "We're 9 minutes away. We're 8 minutes away. We're 7 minutes away. Do you have enough mustard?" My favorite boy. Yeah, I think those are all my thoughts. They were very scattered. But I'd love to hear yours and your thoughts on my thoughts and anything that struck your fancy that I forgot to talk about. Because I loved this book. As much as it frustrated me, as always, I loved this book. I love her characters. I miss Christopher. I hope there's gonna be more someday. My name's Christine. I'm actually also an author. I've got 2 books out right now, and the third one is gonna be out next year. First one's Again But Better. The second one's Better Together. If you want to check them out, there are links in the description. I also have a podcast where I talk about books and movie and TV and fandom and how all of that relates to my adult life. That's called Those Working Fangirls. Link is in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Please share your thoughts and feelings. I'm very excited to discuss in the comments. My name's Christine, and I will see you next time. Goodbye!